everybody. My name is Jacob Sadavoy,
And I'm Michelle Zuby.
and we have the pleasure of being here with Dr. Nicolle Carr from the University of Oklahoma. Welcome.
Hi.
So, Dr. Carr, you wrote a fantastic chapter about some challenges with respect to the ethical code and applying that ethical code in Oklahoma, which is a rural environment. Can you share some of the challenges that you've come across? Maybe one or two, as there's
let's do two because one might not do it justice. But for example, there's been schools that we go into who have literally one kid with special needs. And so you're working with teachers who've never seen a kid with autism, much less were trained in it. And they're in the back of a gen ed classroom, just kind of running around because, well, they're being included, right? So this is inclusion, and even being able to understand the very basics of what to do with the one kiddo who needs a little bit extra in a school system that has, one class per grade. And in Oklahoma, anyways, we have some emergency certified teachers, which means they don't even have the full education to be a teacher. And because we don't have enough teachers in Oklahoma. And so you're dealing with that. You're trying to teach them how to be teachers, but you're also trying to teach them how to do classroom management and behavior supports all at the same time. And it's very difficult, as you can imagine, to find the external, like sometimes we find a grandma in town who needs, a job and a free job. And so she comes in and we train her up for that classroom because there's not anyone extra at that particular school. You may also find in very small rural areas that they have no clue what you do. They just know that you're very important because you're Dr. somebody. And so they call you the psychologist or they call you the medical doctor. Like they literally have no clue. And so part of it is educating people about what we do. Or they want the magic pill, which we also don't have. We have a very long, slow, intense pill that you get to take, but we don't have the quick magic pill. And so dissemination of information within the school that you're going to, but also the culture of the school that you're going into, which in many rural communities is going to be highly punitive, and understanding that the parents are probably handling discipline at home way different than what's at school or what you're allowed to do at school. And not saying anything's better than the other, but you have to remember that if you don't walk in and there's punishment somewhere on your behavior plan, that they're going to poo-poo it as not being strong enough or hard enough. And so you have to make the case for why, if this works, we don't have to get to that point. So.
Fantastic. As a professor, you have to help your students navigate these environments. What's some of the skills that they need in order to be effective in sharing kind of what they do, but also for them to be able to kind of potentially get buy-in from these teachers that aren't really teachers, or these parents that believe in punishment approaches?
Yeah, so that's one of my huge pushes. I teach in the College of Education, which is lucky for me. So I'm teaching future teachers, and specifically usually future special ed teachers. And so one of the things that I say over and over, to the point that they're like, can we put that on your gravestone, is be a good human first and foremost. You're not a BCBA first, you're a human first. And be a good human, which means you have to listen to other people. And if you're not walking into a meeting with open ears and willing to listen to what other people are saying, then you're not going to get buy-in, because you've walked into the meeting as the know-it-all and you've already shut down people, whether it's the teacher or the parent or the principal or the behavior person that you're talking to. And if that behavior person is just a teacher to you, and you don't give them credence for having all this behavioral experience, then they're not going to want to implement anything that you talk to them about, or take the data for you, or do anything, because screw you, kind of an idea. You've already proved to them that they're not willing to work with you. And so if you have to be a good person first and foremost, and then after that, be a great teacher or a great behavior analyst. But the first thing we should be teaching our students to do is be good people. And for example, I don't know if you wanted one, but I'll give you one. Recently, I was working on a case with a transgender child, biological female, preferred pronoun it. And so it was having struggles in the classroom. I was going into the classroom to observe. And finally, I met with the mom, and we ended up having to meet at a Starbucks because she hated the school that much that she didn't want to meet on school property. And so when I met with her and I sat down with her and we're talking when we finished, and there was nothing different about this meeting than any other meeting. We were trying to figure out what was best for, her child. And we left, and she ran up to me and hugged me. And all she said was, "Thank you for listening." Like, literally everybody wants to be listened to. And if you go in to the meeting with your agenda and we're going to discuss FBAs and we're going to discuss what's wrong with your kid and we're going to figure out that behavior and define it and move on, then you're going to miss a lot. I have no idea if that's what you asked. I just got on my soapbox.
Beautiful. Loved it. Bravo. I'd stand up and then I would be cut off.
Yeah. I realize you have a box.
I love that. Be a good human. That's fantastic.
I love that. Be a human first. We talked a little bit about that in one of our other conversations too, how it's don't forget that you're a person, and also even when you take your work hat off, you're still a behavior analyst, right? You can still look at things behavior analytically. And I love how just being a good human rounds all of that out. One of the things though that I think might be really interesting to some people out there who may be not necessarily going and working in a rural setting, but going into a place, an atmosphere, or an environment where nobody knows who we are or what we do, right? What's ABA? What's a behavior analyst? And I would imagine some of the things that you've already mentioned, right? Like listening, maybe pairing yourself as a reinforcer would be highly valuable in those situations. Could you maybe speak to what that might look like going into, a business setting or some other kind of institutional setting?
That's the example I was going to give. So OBM, not only are BCBAs not known here, Oklahoma has 106 of us, to give an idea, for the whole state. And 85% of those BCBAs are within 20 miles of our two big cities, Oklahoma City and Tulsa. So the rest of us are scattered amongst the rest of the state, which is quite giant compared to, say, New Jersey or some of the area, Rhode Island, Maine. We feel very large, but and so the fact that we're only now getting into autism means most other people have no clue who we are. And so, for example, I tried to help a company and use my OBM skills to do so, and went in and I was like, I hear that the company's failing. So-and-so from the company brought me in, let's talk. And the first thing that I wanted to understand is what works really well. I think that we get really focused on what's broken and let's fix it, but sometimes you have to stop and ask what's working for you guys, because I don't want to change that, right? If you take the one thing that's working that they love and they come to work for and you get rid of it, they're going to stop coming to work because they're not sure that you're going to give them something else to replace it that's awesome. And so you have to find the thing that works and focus on the good. And we start there, and then I ask them specifically, what matters to you? Does it matter to you that you have more money in your paycheck? Does it matter to you that you can take days off if your kids, are sick? What matters to you? Maybe it's the safety of the environment, that's what matters to them. And so once they see that you really are there to, one, make the company, profitable or not die or whatever, but also that their concerns, again, are going to be listened to and at some level worked on. Now, I can't do everything, right? But at least now I know where to start or what the main concerns are, because the concerns of the bosses, let's be real, aren't the same concerns as the guy working the cash register. And so you have to know what everybody's concerns are and then figure out ways that you can kind of, I do this with parents. Parents, what is your number one behavior you need change to be successful and feel loved or whatever connected to your child? Teacher, what about you? Okay, I'm going to work on something for the mom. I'm going to work on something for the teacher, because right now those two people aren't even talking, right? They think each other, are the problem. So similarly, if you're walk into an eating disorder clinic and they've never had a behavior analyst in this environment, and you just walk in and say, okay, we're going to get kids to stop, vomiting. Yeah. Okay. They're going to ask you to leave the space. And so you have to ask what's already going well, and let me learn from you just as much as you're learning from me, whether it's you walk into a dementia, assisted living center or whatever. ABA is great, and we're putting our tentacles in all these places, which is fabulous. But if you're the first person to walk in, you're the edge of the tentacle, and you've walked into a place for the first time, you have a lot of dissemination to do. And if you do it poorly, we will no longer be allowed in that location. So it's up to you, if you're the first, to not screw it up for the rest of us.
It's fantastic. It is such a huge responsibility. And there is such great applications of the science. We just don't see ourselves in those environments. And I think it goes back to what you had said, like we're not going into the table listening. We're not going in being good humans. We're going in trying to solve problems. Going back to putting on your professor hat, how do you promote those skills in your students? Like, kind of, how do you support their ability just to like kind of engage in active listening?
So I'm kind of not a very traditional professor. I don't stand behind a lecture and just talk. I don't think, I mean, it does at some level like work, right? They hear some of it, but like I'll walk in and I'll be like the jerk face parent who, you know, everything's everybody else's fault, and they'll ask me questions and I'll be a jerk face more and they'll ask me more questions. And at the end, I'm like, what questions could we have asked to maybe get through that like jerk faceness, you know, or are there questions that we could have still got information out of them, even if it was like worded slightly differently? Or, I mean, there's some teachers that if you say, you know, well, that kid's just doing it for attention, then they're going to stop talking to you because no, that kid's not, they're doing it for control. Okay. So we're going to use two different words. So let's talk about like, what does it look like? Or like, we're really good at this when we talk purely ABA. We're not good about doing this whenever we're talking about anything else. Like, what's home life like? If you sit down with the parent who's got a very terrible home life and they know that they've got a terrible home life, they're not going to contribute information, or they're going to lie, neither of which is going to be helpful. So I do a ton of role play. I'm the ticked off parent. I'm the blame it on everybody else parent. I'm the single mom who's doing the best I can, but I have no resources parent. I'm the administrator that doesn't want you there because I can't afford you, et cetera, et cetera. And we just come at it from all these different angles. And then as a class, we talk about how could we have done it differently? Did, you know, something she say cause a reaction? And should we have taken a break and gone to the bathroom? Even down to like the way you set up sitting at a table. Usually it's an us them the minute that like you walk into a room, right? Like they're all on one side of a table and we're all on the other. And so I try, if I can get there first, to sit at the head of the table, or ask the teacher if they can sit by the parent, or like try to mix it up, not in like a every other one type of situation that looks really bizarre and nobody wants to go to a wedding if you have, you know, a seating chart. But like I try to make it so that the parents don't think I'm on the school side because I'm this independent entity for the role that I play, but also that the school doesn't think that I'm always backing the parent, right? Because then they're not going to be helpful either. So even the little bitty pieces of like where you sit and, you know, that sort of thing can be really, and when you sit down, don't not make eye contact until the meeting starts. And then, okay, tell me about your kid. Like it's fine to have normal conversation with people about the weather or all these things that are called small talk that we do for a reason. It's to break down barriers and establish commonality. And so I take a little bit from like the social skills that we teach our students and put that into like when you're in a class or you're in a meeting, use those social skills that we teach our kids for you to make this a better meeting for everybody.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. That's such wonderful, insightful information. I'm sure your students are very lucky. If you were, who do you think the students would have play you if you were in a movie?
Oh my goodness, Lord of mercy. I don't know. Who would I want it to be? Or yeah.
No, I think you're probably a very good actress.
Yeah. 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 I think it would be somebody that's very, I'm very big, very expressive. And so it'd have to be like, I don't know, Drew Barrymore or somebody. She's always like big. I think I just saw her on a show yesterday. It's probably the reason I thought of her. But yeah, like I don't sugarcoat stuff, but I say it in like almost a smart ass way. So it breaks down any like that you feel about it, you know, because if you can get somebody laughing, usually you can like make a connection.
And it's such a good point, because if they had those experiences in real life, like kind of instead of it being anxiety provoking and potentially causing somebody to like kind of run away from the situation, they've had that experience, they've had that exposure in your classroom, and they're able to like kind of address it in a manner where they're like kind of able to like think of like kind of their behavior and the possible consequences that will come, as opposed to just being reactionary.
Yeah, 100%. And even to the point, if they say something that might even slightly have caused like a riff, like I'll jump up and throw a book, and how dare you call my kids stupid, and I'll walk out of the room. Now, when I come back, I'm like, how could we have said that slightly differently or presented those testing results so that it didn't just sound like your kid's dumb, your kid's dumb, your kid's dumb, your kid's dumb, because they're not. They have so many skills, but we just focus on this other part, and no parent wants to hear that, so you got to say it in a different way sometimes.
Oh, thank you so much. This is fantastic. Is there anything you want to share? Maybe your next movie or other projects that you're working on?
So here's the fun thing, and this isn't a promotion because I have no idea if it's going to come to fruition, but I've got about 15 colleagues right now, and we're working on a book. It will not compete with yours, and it's for undergrad special ed teachers who need some ABA in their life, but they don't need like Cooper. Right. And so it's a version that's more, it's all teacher, it's all applied, but how to bring ABA into the classroom, because I teach that class. I teach classroom management to future special ed teachers. And I like my textbook, but I do a lot of, so here's a scenario. And so this book is very scenario based. It's very applied. Like, yeah, we're going to tell you what the word is, but I'm not going to make you memorize the definition. I want you to use it. Right. So that's what we focus on.
Fantastic. We need to disseminate, and in order to do so, we need to be able to kind of present materials that are more colloquial, so that more of the population can access it, because not everyone's going to be a BCBA, and kind of we can't expect them to kind of give, hey, here's Cooper.
Yeah.
Chapters
understand it. Yeah.
1 through 4, and we'll do a test at the end. Exactly. You get this teacher who's like, I don't want this.
Dropping like flies out of my class. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Dr. Carr. This is fantastic. Really.
Thank you guys so much.